Minister says that you were clearly in Canadian waters. You've got GPS
The minister's
now,
lying.
so
The minister's lying, and we've got it all on record. I defy him. Put out the evidence to prove it, and otherwise, you know, he's just flapping his jaws. He's lying.
Well, in the House of Commons today, he says it's a money-sucking enterprise, and this publicity is all about you raising money from poor, innocent dupes around the world who don't know any better.
I wish it was that. We're the poorest organization out there. The minister should do some homework before he starts making accusations like that. The fact is we're a volunteer organization. You know, our total budget for all of our campaigns is $3 million a year, and that's covering sharks in the Galapagos, whales in Antarctica. You find me another organization that does as much as we do on the meager budget that we have. The minister doesn't have any idea what he's talking about when he makes accusations like that.
But what about the suggestion that you've been using old pictures, the Bridget Bardot stuff with the little white coats? I mean, that hasn't been going on for years.
Yeah, we're using the pictures that we got like last week. You know, I don't know, you know, you got to look at our website, Mike, before you start taking the word of the minister. You know, the seals that are on our website were taken last week.
Well, I mean, you don't want to go see them make steak either. I mean, it's not a pretty situation, but is that what it's all about?
I don't want them to see make steak either. Do you know that the biggest predator of fish, the biggest marine aquatic animal on this planet right now, aside from people, is the pig? Pigs eat more fish than all the world's seals put together, because half of all the fish taken out of the ocean is fed to livestock. You know, this is where it's all going. It's human greed that's destroying the ocean. Do you want to bring the fish back? Bring back more seals. There used to be 40 million seals on the east coast of Canada and no shortage of fish. It wasn't the seals that wiped them out. The fish were wiped out by human greed and the incompetence of the Canadian Department of Fisheries and Oceans.
It sounds to me, Mr. Watson, we've talked about this over the years, and I always appreciate your coming on, but it sounds to me like the Canadian government's getting tougher than they have been for a long time, i.e. recruiting other countries to make up a blacklist so that you won't be able to get your ship in to refuel or to resupply.
Well, you can talk that. Today he was describing himself as Wyatt Earp, but the fact is, blacklist, whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, we've got we operate worldwide. We're in partnership with the government in Ecuador, you know, to stop poachers. We've got full support of people in Australia. We're doing just fine. I'm not worried about his blacklist, and he's not getting tougher. He's getting desperate, is what it's all about.
Well, there are lots of people in the Maritimes, and they all vote, and I'm sure, as you know...
But they don't vote for me. They don't vote for me, and I don't have to curry to their favor.
Well,
my clients are whales and seals and fish. That's who I represent.
Paul Watson, what's the next step? Did the judge set a date? When do your people have to be back in court, or how does that work?
I think there's a court hearing on May 1st, but this will drag on. It always does, and in the end, we'll win. We've always done that before. I'll turn around, I'll sue them, I'll get damages. It's happened 3 times before. It's just just part of the process that we go through. They'll hold the ship will get damaged, I'll sue the government. It's just the way it goes.
Paul Watson, we'll be following it with great interest. Thank you for joining us tonight from Sydney.
Thank you.
Coming up right after the break,
bails out senior crewman of the Farley Mowat with a bag full of toonies from the real Farley Mowat.
Observing the seal hunt is one thing, obstructing seal hunt is something else.
Environmentalists in the Fisheries Ministry continue to butt heads over the seal hunt. Hello, I'm Dan Matheson. Thanks for being with us here at CTV Newsnet. Also ahead this hour, Brenda Martin's the captain and first mate of the ship, the Farley Mowat. His method of payment was a bag full of toonies. While in Ottawa, the federal fisheries minister lashed out at Watson, accusing him of profiting from protest. CTV's Dan McIntosh has the latest.
With a bag full of toonies in hand, Paul Watson came to the Sydney courthouse this afternoon. He was there to bail out the captain and first officer of the Farley Mowat, seized Saturday and brought to Sydney Harbour Sunday.
These guys boarded our vessel on the high seas at gunpoint, stole all our property, and now they want $10,000 to release our crew. So we look on it as a ransom, and so might as well do it in pirate coinage, which is doubloons.
Paul Watson hasn't saved one solitary seal, but he's put a lot of money into his own pocket.
In Ottawa today, Fisheries Minister Loyola Hearn defended the DFO, saying the crew of the Farley Mowat was blatantly breaking the law by obstructing the seal hunt.
Observing the seal hunt is one thing, obstructing a seal hunt is something else. They have done it, they have a history of doing it. They did it once too often, and we took them into port, and we'll see what happens.
Newfoundland Labrador Premier Danny Williams was blunt in his assessment of the weekend events and Paul Watson.
Well, the fact that this has finally happened is a good thing because Paul Watson is certainly not welcome in our country either, and certainly not in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Watson spent much of the afternoon waiting for the bail money to be counted, money which he says came from the namesake of the vessel, author Farley Mowat.
Well, he said he regards this whole thing as an act of totalitarianism on the part of the government, and he just found it outrageous.
Once the money was delivered by Watson at the Cape Breton courthouse, a fax was received here at the Cape Breton Correctional Centre indicating that bail had been posted. The 2 crew members were released shortly thereafter. Watson and his supporters arrived at the Correctional Centre late this afternoon to pick up the arrested crew members. They're due back in court May 1st. Dan McIntosh, CTV News.
When you're the
1,000 seals is a far greater tragedy.
The kind of talk that had this politician saying things like this.
These are a bunch of money-sucking manipulators.
Calling the whole protest a fundraising scheme for the cause. Ottawa had enough. The RCMP stormed the ship, which authorities say unlawfully interfered with the hunt.
According to Coast Guard, Fisheries and the RCMP, they did come within 1/2 nautical mile, and therefore that puts them in violation of the regulations.
Hence the charges and the need for the bail money, donated by the man the protesters' boat is named for.
Because it was the right thing to do. Secondly, because I think that the action of the Canadian government in this area was absolutely atrocious.
Today in the House of Commons, the Fisheries Minister wasn't concerned about what he called Watson's PR exercise.
In the meantime, I'll stand up for our sealers and our laws.
Back in Atlantic Canada, sealers and their supporters are happy.
Thank God you guys are around. Job well done.
Sealers get what they wanted. The hunt can continue uninterrupted by what some say is hijinks on the high seas. Watson did get his crew back, and he got his moment.
Well, actually, we've achieved everything we want to achieve. We've gotten the documentation that we need to present to the European Parliament. We're quite confident that the European Parliament's going to ban seal products, and that pretty much means the end of the seal hunt in Canada.
With both sides declaring victory, it's still not clear what happens to this boat. The Farley Mowat remains under seizure with no clear indication of when it might be released. Tom Murphy, CBC News, Sydney.
A new development today in the